Brother and sister together will make it through. Someday a spirit will lift you and take you there. I know you've been hurting, but I've been there waiting to be there for you. And I'll be there just helping you out whenever I can. Because everybody's free to feel good. Everybody's free to feel good. Yeah. Welcome back to Supreme Fuzzler. We are at the Fuzzler Cast Season 2, Episode 1, Powerless in the Face of Death. A brilliant episode, one that truly brings out the best in this series has to offer. I don't know how to truly stress. And that beginning, and just so you guys know, is Rosala, I think her name is? Yeah. Rosala, who does that song, Everybody's Free, which is free, and it's a really interesting, awesome song. It's a epitome of the 2000s. Like the techno music that starts off this episode. It's like 2 minutes of starting off this episode. We have Brock. We have a whole. It shows so many awesome events at the beginning of this episode, where like JJ is getting his his arm is fixed by Billy, because Billy obviously has a metal arm. Shows him using it to masturbate, because you got to make sure you can do that. It shows Monarch in the prison seeing a butterfly and eating it. It shows the Dr. Girlfriend getting a kiss from Phantom Limb, but then having a very sad look afterwards, because apparently she's not totally happy, because, and then it shows, there's a lot of things that happen in this whole scene. And then it shows, as the Cuz Everybody's Free starts, it shows the cocoon being blown up, because we remember 21 and 24 were ordered by Monarch to blow up the cocoon, and so they're blowing up the cocoon. And then it shows Rusty struggling with Billy, White, and Brock, which I wanted to point out Billy White, because I want to believe that they know the truth when it comes to everything, which we'll get to that as this episode progresses. I want to before I continue, remind people of what happened at the end of Season 1. At the end of Season 1, Episode 13, Return to Spider Skull Island, the boys, Hank and Dean, were killed. Murdered. Although by 21 and 24, although by accident. So, whatever, I guess. Guys, I love 21 and 24, but, it does a really interesting thing where, so after you see Rusty, he kicks Brock, who probably was the only one actually holding him back, and got out and gets on the X1, the plane, and gets the hell out of there. And then he is, flying around the planet, apparently, all around, I guess, the Earth. And, whoa. But he's flying around the planet, so he's in, Africa, running around in Africa, trying to hide, and finds, a jungle woman who scratches him real quick, and then runs away as Brock calls out for him in a canoe. Then he's in, the Himalayas, smoking stuff, hides beneath a fucking pelt or something, and runs away. Then he's in then he's smoking hookah in the Arabia area or some shit like that, and Brock calls out for him, and he gets away. And then it accumulates to the techno with the techno music. By the way, this is all happening with Everybody's Freeze music at the beginning of the episode. And then it accumulates to the techno rave of in either America or Europe. We can only guess at that point. And Brock catches up to Rusty and gets Rusty. Rusty's like, I don't want to go back. And Brock's like, you have to come back to your responsibilities. Can't run away from what happened to the boys. Rusty says, screw the boys. I want to stay here with our feel-good candy. And he's like, I got this girlfriend, Sky. We're going to have a child. And then Brock's like, nah, bro, it's time to end your fantasies. And injects him with some serum stuff, and knocks him the fuck out. And then after that, it goes into the intro, which I love how they do the intro in this beginning of this episode, because it shows the beginning of the season. It shows JJ or Jonas who was introduced at the end of the last episode, and Rusty, the Venture Brothers, since the series is still the Venture Brothers, and that's kind of like, how things are going to be going with this. After that, they have Jonas kind of just talking to Rusty and being like, we're the Venture Brothers, what's mine is yours, and Rusty being like, I'm back in action, I need to get bills paid and get stuff done. I gave you half my stuff, Spider Skull Island, what do you want now? And Jonas is obviously, Jonas Jr. is just trying to, kind of come together as brothers in a way. But it's interesting how Rusty is essentially like, nah, man, I reject you, and I don't want to, like, do any joint things. And it's interesting how they explain how they basically talk about, like, the projects they have left to do. And Jonas is like, well, I got 2 left to do. And Rusty's like, those are my contracts. And like, well, I'm a Dr. Venture too, so it works out. And Rusty's like, I've only got a month. So apparently he was only away from the household a month for this point. And JJ's like, you can have the teleporter, the other, because he talks about teleporter and a sound that kills. And apparently Jonas Jr. here got a fucking doctorate degree in just a month. 2 doctorates. Oh, that's right. That's right. He does say that. Since you've been gone, I got 2 doctorates. Haha. He's fucking genius. Goddamn. Jonas Jr. then says, like, I got your staff on the teleporter job, and it's in the manufacturing wing. And Rusty's like, I have a manufacturing wing? I have a staff? And then goes to Orpheus talking to Brock, who's working on his car. Orpheus is like, I let those boys die right in front of me. It's all because of me. And Brock's like, these things happen. And he's like, what is with you people? I let those boys be snuffed out in the prime of their youth. Hate me. Okay, fine, I hate you. Hey, you hungry? I think I'm gonna make grilled cheese. Fucking Brock is so funny. Okay, excuse me for my curse words, but I really, really do enjoy these episodes. They are brilliant and really well done, crafted well. This episode is particularly very emotionally and compelling and has a lot of important stuff that's happening, stuff that's really important for the season, for this season, for the next 6 seasons, 5 seasons, or whatever. Like events that happen in this episode and the revelations of this episode are critical for pretty much the entire series almost. Almost not, though. There's a point where it kind of comes out to be we'll get there. Sorry. We'll see. We'll explain it. Maybe when I analyze that episode, I might think of it again. Let's continue, though. Orpheus kind of explains to Brock that he's a necromancer and how he's gonna, like, he can bring the dead back to life, basically. And I don't know if Brock just doesn't connect the dots about how he's gonna try to bring him back to life, or he just doesn't believe him, the kind of like how Rusty doesn't believe him, because it is kind of unbelievable. But Orpheus basically says, I'm gonna try to res the boys at this point. It then goes to Rusty and Jonas, who go into their manufacturing wing, assumably, where they see these 2 guys who are working on this machine, and one of them is like telling another guy, like, where are you looking, man? Look down, eyes down, bro. And they're like, who the hell are you guys? Like, whoa, you don't. And Rusty goes off about how, like, okay, and he puts his credit cards out, like, now you can't kill me, hobo code, right? And the one guy, Hector, who has a name tag, it says, is like, man, all those adventures together, you don't remember me? And it does a flashback where it shows how the dude, as a young boy, protected Jonas Sr., and Rusty as a young boy was like, the little brown boy saved you, can't we keep him, pa? It's so horrible. It also shows in the airplane in that flashback that Swifty, the guy who is the other dude, is like with them basically as a boxer, it looks like. And Rusty's like, no, I don't remember. Then a lady shows up that Rusty's like, whoa, that's a beautiful lady. Tell me she works here too. And Jonas Jr.'s like, my ride, going to Spider Skull Island. Later, big brother. And Swifty, the big guy, is like, I used to be pretty, but not anymore. Now look at my nose. So funny. It then goes to the scene where it's Monarch. Monarch's in prison. And it shows that King Gorilla's taking him and trying to, like, and he's like, King, are you raping me? No. Well, I was gonna. What, gonna? What the hell, King? This is not even my cell. Like, well, I got porn here. It helps. La 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 la. I can't hear this. It's such an awesome little scene because it like establishes like what's happening with Monarch. Basically, Monarch is in jail dealing with some crazy shit, and that's just how it's going down for him. Poor Monarch. Then goes to Orpheus, who's like traveling some kind of ice dimension thing, and he steps on some dude's faces because he's calling for Hank and Dean, but he steps on some dude's faces who looks like they're Romans, and he's like, "Yes, Pilgrim," and then another guy's like, "No, no, 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 you're not a Caesar's Legion guy. You just were at a Halloween party." And then he asks for a tow-headed and rust-colored hair person, which they both look exactly like Hank and Dean in their own way. So it's kind of like a weird, like, are you asking for us scenario? Then it goes back to Rusty with the two guys, Hector and Swifty. And he asks them if it's already done, right? And Swifty's like, it's a kite. I don't know, man. It's kind of... Rusty's like, what the heck's wrong with him? And Hector explains, like, he used to be a professional prize fighter until he got knocked a little silly. And then your dad put him to work here, and after his wife left him. And Rusty's like, my dad's dead. He's been dead. And Hector's like, your dad died? Like, yeah, he's been dead for like 20 years, and you're both fired. To ask where the door is, and he's like, that way. Apparently they never knew how to get... I guess they've been staying there, living there or some shit for this entire time. It's kind of weird to think about what Hector and Swifty were doing in this place during this time before this. I guess they're living there, maybe. So after they leave, Rusty kind of goes into the machines like half done and looks like it's good. I'll put a little bit of blue on it and ship it to the government. And then he he kind of touches the buttons and they all flash. All the fucking lights go out in the house. It shows Broccoli. What the hell is happening? It's so brutal. It then goes to Monarch, who is walking down the hall and is doing a cool ass like kind of soundtrack kind of thing. It's so awesome. And as he's walking down the hall, a bunch of other prisoners are giving him items, and then as he gets back to his cell and he's like dodging a guard, he's like, I got the stuff. How are you working with phase 2? There's a tiny little man writing a small message on a dot that he puts on a butterfly, and they're like, what space you're allowed to have those? Well, everyone thinks people needs a hobby, and he sends the butterfly off to like send a message apparently, and then some eagle intercepts it, which sends it to the guild, which at the guild is Watch and Ward, some of my favorite characters. They were introduced early, and late in season 1, but now they're going to be used a little more as the seasons progress. They are fantastic characters, and as they print the message that they're getting from the Monarch, like, good news, fantastic Caribbean getaway, like, idiots printing from memory. When is the last time you changed the paper in that thing? So funny. They are brilliant characters. Watch this show for them alone, if nothing else, but you will love it a lot more than that, I promise. It then goes back to Rusty, who Brock finds him, and he's half stuck in the wall. Half his body is. And he's like, is this all I need? Like, dang teleporter. And Brock before that had found his legs and tried to pull them, and like was like, oh man, and found him in the lab. So his legs are sticking out of the TV while his body is on the wall. Half his body is on the wall, and you can't find the rest of him. He throws something, and then he like sticks his hand in sludge, he says. And he's like, I think it's near the bathroom. Oh god. It then goes to Orpheus and Triana. Triana's like talking about how the clock is blinking 12 because I think the power went out, which obviously it did. Orpheus has a circle, and he's like, can a guy leave his house with a shovel without an inquisition? No, you gotta let them go, Dad. Like, I gotta do a resurrection, and I can't find their souls. How can you lose a soul? They're like not like car keys. And Triana freaks out about them as zombies, but Orpheus explains like Evel Knievel and Ronald Reagan and all these other people were my clients, and these are like a normal resurrection, and because zombies are apparently soulless bodies. And then they have someone ring the doorbell. And as he opens the door, it's pink, slug-looking, weird-looking Hank and Dean faces. Dun, dun, dun! So, it then goes back to Brock and Rusty. Brock's bringing in Rusty's legs. Rusty reveals that he's pretty sure his third side's outside because he feels himself being rained on. And then Orpheus comes out of the ceiling from sludge? Question mark here? What the fuck? And he's like, oh no, you two are trapped between worlds. What have I done? And Brock's like, no. Doc did that to himself. And Rusty's like, no. My stupid brother did this to me. Ah, Rusty. Orpheus then explains that he believes he brought back your sons as soulless zombies. It then goes to Monarch in the prison. He's talking to a crew of people. And he's like, everyone understands their like positions, like what they got to do, right? And Tigerific, you look apprehensive. What's up? And Tigerific explains how he's not sure he can actually break down the bars. And Mars like, don't sell yourself short, man. I've seen you cleave a news van in twain. You're all by yourself. It was all costume. I'm not having any powers. You're not like a half tiger or raised by tigers like Mowgli. And that was wolves. And no. And then King Gorilla chimes in about how he can do it. And he's kind of wasted as a lookout. Mark's like, don't come back to me telling me that's a gorilla suit or some shit. Everyone else understand it? And fucking this one guy, the monocle guy, is like, what is my title here? Like, I don't know. Like, I want to be president of calendars. Whatever. It's gonna be so Monday-licious. And then the guy who's all like datafied, weird looking, all void control. It's like my pure white cells cannot be muddled with anyone else like who's not. Like, are you even white? You can't even tell under there. Like, I was white once, but now after that accident, whatever, man. Like, let's just get this done, guys. Let's go. Okay, and then it cuts to a henchman therapy group. And a dude who's in a crocodile outfit's explaining how Captain Sunshine really just fucked up his last villain leader who saved his life, basically, and like risked his life to save him and died, basically, saving him. And then a guy chimes in who is obviously 21 and explains how he feels how they can actually go transcend the henchman level, maybe become villains themselves. The therapist is like, that's not what this is about. But he's like, but I can become the new queen. Yeah. Really rallying this group to that kind of cause. It's so awesome. It then goes back to Rusty and Orpheus and the crew. And Orpheus is explaining how he saw their bodies himself, the boys' bodies. And Rusty's like, you saw them? Nice job, Brock. And Brock's like, that must have been that power surge. And fucking Orpheus is like, who's your grief counselor, Mother Teresa? I've made them movie monsters. What the hell? And then his talisman starts glowing, and he's like, it glows! I can tell that our souls are nearby, finally! And Rusty's like, dude, go home, take a shower. You're hallucinating. No shower for Byron Orpheus! Orpheus is going off about how, like, he can hear the boys and everything, and how Hank calls him Rusty a crumb bum. And Dean forgives them. He then goes off about this machine he's looking at. He's like, what is this machine? I can hear it from here. And Rusty's like, oh no, did I play God and make robots of them? And fucking Brock's like, stop jerking the guy around. He's getting ectoplasm everywhere. Goddamn. It then goes to Phantom Limb talking to King Gorilla. And King Gorilla is basically telling him to shove it about how he doesn't want to participate in whatever the fuck Phantom Limb's trying to create. But then Lim kind of brings out a cake that has the shape of a human, and he asks King Gorilla what's inside the cake. And I've always kind of assumed he says Tarzan. One moment, I'm actually gonna subtitle it real quick. Well, before that, they do a whole fucking talk about why King Gorilla's in the prison, which he sodomized Vince Neil on national television. There's nothing we could do. And then also Lim kind of is like, I don't want you to walk out of the shower one day and someone, bam, shoots your penis and small and shrinks with a shrink ray, basically. And King Gorilla's like, I don't respond to threats. Then he brings out the cake. The cake. Lim says it has, okay, ask him what's inside of it. And he's like, marzipan. And Lim's like, Tarzapan. I've never understood the joke, but I get it. There's a fucking Tarzan in there. Although I thought for sure earlier, Monarch's like, they allow King Gorilla to keep all those Tarzans. So I don't know why offering him a Tarzan would be enough to convince Lim, but whatever, I guess. It then goes down to back to Orpheus, who's like, slow down, what about the zombies? Rusty explains that those are clone slugs, which he's basically explaining now that the machine he has is the computer that stores all the data of their minds, which through the learning beds will replace their memories with the memories of up to their 16-year-old point. And Orpheus is like, so they're very souls, because that's why his thing was reacting. It's interesting how much Rusty and Orpheus is like, basically, professions are crossing right here, in a way. Because Rusty essentially is playing God and outwitting God with necromancy in his own way, which fucking Orpheus responds to, like his fucking amulet, as well as everything in general. He understands and can connect this, and he's just so blown away by what Rusty's explaining. And then, okay. And then Rusty starts talking about how, if it makes you feel any better, they weren't even the first ones. This is 17 times. It then goes through each death of the Rusties and the boys, of Hank and Dean. Before we do the flashback of Hank and Dean, he also talks about how they are not much different, because Orpheus is like, well, that's awful, but Rusty's like, why is it any different than what you do, Necromancer? And it's the same thing. Souls, purgatory, everything you're saying is computer, science, it's just the other side around. It is interesting how Rusty's basically like, fuck off, don't try to get weird with me about that. He then, to console him, explains that this is 14 times is how many times this is. Then shows the first death being they got sucked into the plane. Alright. Then there's a giant spider who goes to attack them. They then try to smoke a cigarette, which then lights and hits one of them in the eye, and then they explode. Fucking wow. Good job, boys. They then both put apples on their heads and shoot arrows at each other, killing each other. There's then a point where they're riding their bicycles or scooters, and then they go across a clothesline, like a literal clothesline. You see fucking shirts on it, and that decapitates them. I don't know how, but it does. Guess they were going that fast. Wow. Then, one of the more interesting ones, it shows Werewolf Rusty finds them and kills them, essentially. It doesn't show him killing them, but it shows him howling with their blood on his hands, which I find interesting because I don't know, they've implied at least that Rusty's never, he's them himself. So I just think about how much that must be an interesting thing Rusty has to deal with, as he's one of the, not only allow these deaths to happen, but legitimately is the cause, the literal killer in one of them. It's pretty hardcore. Then shows Hank jumping off the roof with a Batman costume. I wonder if they killed Dean, like, as a, precautionary measure, so that they stay the same age. It's fucked up and weird to think about. Then it shows a giant robot busting into their room, apparently killing them also. And then, I guess to even it out with Hank, one of the ways to show that, shows Dean running with scissors. He trips, and although it doesn't show it, assumably kills him. It then shows Hank telling Dean to go long and starts to throw a football, but then a satellite falls on him. Like, what the fuck? Then it shows the Dean boys just sleeping, and it's like, what the fuck's happening? And then Rusty's like, we had a gas leak that night. Silent killer. And then he's like, oh, there's that one time, and where he falls and spikes, and they're like, oh yeah, that's the time we had mustaches. What were you thinking? Oh god. And then Rusty's like, oh, it wasn't like that other time where by one hair, where I spilled water on it and set them on fire. So hardcore how many times they've accidentally killed these kids. Which Orpheus rightfully has a horrified face, although, but just basically really surprised face. It then shows the henchman again. And fucking 24, because it showed that 24 had noticed 21 in the but he didn't speak yet. 24 goes up, what is that, a royal jelly donut you got there, you big queen? And a beard isn't a substitution for a jawline, no matter how you trim it. Never change. Same old 24. Damn, when's Monarch gonna bust out already? Which then it goes to Monarch, who jumps out of the prison cell just as they're about to shut, and is like, oh my god, you guys are supposed to help me. Go, like, what's tonight? And then everyone's like laughing at him, and like, apparently everyone had been paid off or told to not help him by the guild. And in the end, he goes to King Gorilla and is like, Gorilla, you're supposed to help me, King. And he explains that it's a guild thing, and then Monarch explains that, no, Phantom Limb just wants me out of here because of my girlfriend. It's stupid. I will get him back for this. And then King saves him, busts out the toilet, and pushes him down the pipe and tells him to get out of there. It's like a mile out. And he's like, love, that's why I did this. It was in your eyes when you talked about your girlfriend. What kind of monster would I be to get in the way of love? You go to her. And he kisses them and then fucking pushes them down the pipeline. And fuck yeah, Monarch. And then Orpheus and Rusty and the rest are talking still. And he's like, what would I tell Triana? And Rusty's like, tell him what I tell everyone. The boys never died. Which, going back to the beginning of the episode, I want to think Billy and White, I think, know the truth. By the way, is what I was trying to get to at the beginning. Because they were trying to stop him. They're the only ones who truly... And also, I want to point out the beginning of the episode. Rusty is so nonchalant about this. So, like, whatever the fuck, I don't care. But he had to disappear for a month before he was capable of coping with the fact that they died again. Whether or not he can save them, he still, in one way or the other, feels something to where he just couldn't handle it anymore for at least a month. Until Brock brought him back. And he almost was willing to just fucking give it up and let them permanently die. He was willing to do that almost at that point. It's kind of crazy to think about. It then shows the boys in their fucking slug forms going around and then going, go Team Venture. And it's kind of gross. And Orpheus has a horrified face again because goddamn, it's horrifying. And then does the outro, which has a really cool, different outro song for this time. Really cool. And then shows the last scene, which Monarch getting out of the pipe and being like, oh, and then an arm kind of grabs him. Like, I thought the whole plan went to shit. Thank God you guys are here. And he's like, what? And it's goddamn Rusty's arm. So funny and amazing. Gosh damn. This episode is freaking amazing, guys. Highly recommend it. Season 2, Episode 1, Powerless in the Face of Death. Watch Venture Brothers, Find a Way, DVDs, AdultSwim.com, HBO Max, whatever the hell you can find. It is such a good show. I really enjoy this. Sorry, it's just a repeat of the show, basically. But I just want to, like getting into the reviewing-ish part of it, discussion. I really like how important this episode is. Like explaining the cloning thing. The hints that Season 1 gave that they now truly came to the forefront at the beginning of Season 2. These are also, as I said, the catalyst for almost the entire series. This event, the cloning thing, is really important. And it's also interesting to think about as the episodes progress that this is a thing. Hank and Dean don't know. They apparently convinced Triana not to know. And the only ones who do know are assumably Orpheus, Rusty, Brock, Billy, White, who all are the only ones I am guaranteeing know at this point. In my personal opinion, because they're the only ones who seem to would rightfully know. Orpheus had to find out because of this whole event, and Rusty's not willing to like wipe his memory or some shit. And it's just interesting to think about. They also, like a lot of other things can come out of this episode. Jonas Jr. going and doing his own thing is important, and Rusty refusing to work with Jonas Jr. JJ is what we end up calling him, and of course the Hank and Dean not being able to be killed technically. 21 and 24 being obviously friends with each other still, but wanting to be Monarch's henchmen still. Monarch escaping, that's huge. That's like the catalyst for the rest of the season, honestly. Because Monarch's so important for the rest of the season, and I'm not even joking about that. This also gave us a lot about Rusty. The beginning of the episode, as I said, is key to Rusty's psyche, in my opinion. Understanding that despite the fact that he knows that he can res them, that this event did enough to him that he had to leave. And then Brock being willing to chase him down too, Their relationship's interesting to think about. How friendship is, if you want to call it that, or is it Brock's job? I don't know. Seems a little weird to have to chase him that hard. And then there's Dean and Hank themselves, who don't get really used in this, but you see how much suffering they've had. Though they won't know about it, but their lives are very perilous, is what we've learned. So perilous that they legitimately die. Many times. Orpheus has to deal with that kind of fact, and then it also shows one of the things I want to point out that is really interesting, although they don't talk about it later, is what Rusty doesn't use. He has cloning. Legitimately one of the most powerful, coolest, intense technologies in the history of man. In history of technology. Immortality, in a sense, is in his hands. And yet he does not sell that. How can he have financial problems? Well, a fucking motherfucker decides to keep his best invention for his family, for his sons. Because he's weird like that. Because he's not obsessed with success and money and power. Despite his desire for fame, despite his kind of weird envy of those who are always in the light, that's more because he knows what the light is like. And he's so in the, like, I know what it is like to have everything, to be, like, famous and fucking awesome. But I also know what it's like to be struggling and how much it's better it is to not be in the light. And how his life is just not that bad if you think about it. This episode's amazing. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you're on the YouTube. Hit me up anywhere you hit the podcast. Spotify, Pandora, whatever, wherever you are. iHeartRadio. Anywhere. Apple. Stitches? I think it's called Stitches. Stitchy? Anyways. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for joining me. This is Supreme Fuzzler, continuing my adventure through the Venture Brothers. See you in episode 2. Hate floats? Hate floats. Later, everyone.